What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Trout Wrangler Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Garrity. We got a really cool episode coming today. Take care of a few housekeeping things before we get started. And just wanted to let everybody know we will be at the Cast and Drafts Seawee party at the Island Cabana Bar and Grill over in Charleston, South Carolina on February 14th. We'll be around Charleston that whole weekend. Be out there with a tent set up. We'll be wheeling and dealing some flies and hanging out with everybody, drinking a few cold beers, and just, enjoying it. So if you're going to be there, come and say what's up. We'll be out there. And it's just going to be an all-around good time. That Cast and Drafts crew is full of a bunch of really cool dudes. So head on out, check us out. We'll be there. Just look for the Trout Wrangler Podcast and Rise Flies backdrop, and you will see us. But for the podcast episode we got coming up here, before we get into it, want to thank the companies that help and continue to help make this podcast possible. We got Free Fly Apparel, Fleta Coffee, Yeti Coolers, Bahio Sunglasses, Temple Fork Outfitters, and Loon Outdoors. We have been with them for a good amount of time. They've helped us out, and now for our episode with Kevin Fenn of East Cape Skiffs. What's up, guys? Like I said in the intro, we do have an interview today. Really cool one at that. I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit, Kevin.
All right, guys. What's going on? Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here, Ryan. Thank you for reaching out to us. I don't think I've done many of these in my years, but for those that are joining us that don't know who I am, my name is Kevin Fenn. I am founder, creator of a brand called East Cape Boats. And we're going on our 23rd year.
Yeah, man. I know y'all been around for a minute. I think y'all were literally probably the first skiff that I ever saw, because I know we were talking about it before. You built one for actually my high school fishing club, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit down here in the in the episode. But first question is, how did East Cape Boats get started, and kind of like what inspired the original mission of your company?
Ooh, okay. So I guess we could say there's two versions of it, but I'll just give you the short end of each. Is basically, I loved to fish growing up. Nobody in my family did. Tried to go to college and ended up dropping out. And through an ad, I became a fishing rep. And I was one of the younger fly fishing and marine reps at the time. And that was in 1996. I'm a little dating myself here. But at the time, there was a product called Pro Trim, and there was a fly line tamer. And I got the ability to travel around the country, sell it wholesale, retail. Got to meet a lot of industry people that I was looking up to, asking for their autographs. And then fast forward, now we're hanging out outside of shows and venues, and I realized that they're just normal people like everybody else. But and then I got heavy while I was seeing my accounts traveling. I wanted, I was into the whole kayak and canoe thing. That was always my thing. Love small crafts, and I felt like there was a niche, and I didn't really see, what we all say now is micro skiff. Back then, I was calling a pocket skiff a micro skiff, and everybody said that, in my industry, that there wouldn't be pull and troll zones, there wouldn't be no motor zones, and these cute little boats you're talking about seems cool, but nah, don't go there. It's not worth it. And obviously, I didn't listen. And I was young. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. And I was like, I could take that risk because if it doesn't succeed, it's not like, kids are depending on me. So I took the risk and it stuck. But the other version of the story, and really how I got here, was I drew it. My friend Tom Mitzloff at the time owned a company called Mitzi Skiff.
Yeah.
By the way, I think the guy is probably the most creative guy out there when it comes to design and execution. That's a whole nother podcast in itself, is some of the people I've met along the way in my industry. But I showed my drawings to other boat manufacturers I was selling to, because one of the brands I represented after I left Pro Trim, I became an independent rep, was Stiffy Push Poles. And I was selling to all the flats boat manufacturers as well as marinas and obviously fishing guides. But one brand I showed it to, they said they would take a look at it. They liked the idea and they were going to build one. And then, that individual made the comment that I would be given one. I never got my free boat, but yet they came out with something similar to my drawings and actually used, one of the names that I had picked out from the model. So that was the kickstart, the initiative to, hey, I can show these guys what's going on. My idea, instead of having somebody else build it and I sell it, why don't I just do the whole damn thing? And, that's how it was created. I did have a partner, amazing guy. I don't talk about it very often. But, we were a force to be reckoned with when we first started the brand. And, the technical term is the company bought him out.
Yeah.
He was just ready to do something else. And I don't blame him, because at that time, that was 18 years in. And he had older kids, I'm having young kids. We were just at two different places. And I wanted to take the brand and keep going to the next level. So, but back then, we literally started out of a one-car garage.
Holy cow.
Literally. And we got kicked out of the garage because I rented it out of the apartment complex I was at. And I was in a Tyvek suit, and we're working on the plug, which is what's used to build a mold. And every time we'd open up the garage door, all this dust would fly out. People thought we were cooking meth or coke or something. And then we had to go get a real garage, which was a self-storage unit that had buildings that you could rent out of. And a lot of businesses would store like pressure washing, lawn equipment, trailers and stuff. And I remember we'd have to drive to the gas station to use the bathroom. And then it was like a year and a half later, when we finally got our first bundle of Gladesman out, that we sold 12 of them right away, and we had a business. So then we upped it and got in the same facility a garage bay, but this time it had an office and a bathroom. And we thought we were, we thought we were on our way up, man. And, very humble beginnings, very grassroots, very trial and error. I laugh at some of the mistakes we made back then. I still laugh at some of the boats that I see that we built, 15, 18, 20, 22 years ago. Because where we're at today and where we were at then, you obviously see the progression. And it's cool to look at your work, because you want to get better as you go. You never want to go the opposite. So that's how we started, kind of out of anger. And I had a need for small crafts. And, there's a book called The Gladesman. I met Glenn Simmons, who was a real pioneer of the Everglades. In the back of the book, it shows you how to build what was called a Glade skiff. And, I had three names picked out. Gladesman for the name of the book.
Yeah.
Glade skiff, and then also Cracker Canoe. And I thought Cracker Canoe was a little racist. Tom actually drew that on the 2D CAD drawing of the original Gladesman drawing. I actually had, I'm looking around my office because I thought I had it up in my office, the actual fax that Tom sent when he was still being an architect before he became a boat manufacturer. But yeah, that's how Eastcape started.
Dude, that's an awesome story. See, dude, so do you still have a lot of those boats, like the OG Escapes kind of going around?
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of, how do I say this? I don't want to give secrets away, but I also have a little different mentality. At Eastcape, it's not a I company, it's a we company. The other thing is I want to take care of the brand. I've always said new or used. So I would say probably 20% of my time I spend a week, helping guys who are buying a boat third hand, that we built back in 2015. Or, hey, Kevin, do you have this logo from 2007? What can you tell me? I definitely think, I know for a fact I'm one of the oldest builders left under original ownership. And, I still, put hands on all the boats. I mean, technically not physically building the boats anymore, but I definitely walk through the shop more than once a day looking at things,
Yeah.
And the big joke I always say now is, I have two employees I never met, and their names are not me, and I don't know. And how do we correct those two guys? But I would say 70% of our staff have been with us longer than 15 years. Adam has actually been by my side for over 21 years, and when again, the technical term, Eastcape bought out Mark, we made Adam, or I made Adam, a partner. So Adam is actually a partner.
Oh.
So I actually have a business partner. So I like to tell people that I'm founder and co-owner because it's always been that way. I've always been the face, because in the past my other partner didn't like being in videos, and Adam doesn't really like to do the videos. And truth be told, I don't like doing the videos either. I've done so many of them. But when you do one-shot takes all the time, you just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it rip. So if a truck goes by, somebody's walking through it, hey, let's go. We don't have to edit it. Let's just talk about the boat.
Oh yeah. I think that's the most like original, organic kind of way to do it. And I think that's kind of something that's kind of lost these days. So I think that's really cool how it's just like one shot, one take.
Yep. We've always done it. One shot, one take. We try to do a lot of the boats. We don't get them all. That's a whole nother story. Sometimes I'm like, man, we don't have time for this one. Or, hey, the customer's, demanding and wanting to come and we just can't get it filmed. So let's just let it go out the door. But we try to do a lot of the boats.
Heck yeah. So over 2 decades in the business, kind of like how has your perspective on building those boats changed?
Ooh. Well, I don't like to look at our industry stuff anymore because I think our industry is so dead. I always try to look at other industries. I mean, it's crazy. I'll go to a textile show. I'll go to, a plastics convention. For me, I'm actually pretty, I've been upset the last couple of years because I feel like I woke up one day 4 years ago or 5 years ago and everything looks the same. There's every time I turn around, there's a new brand or something. Yeah. And I am all for competition. I'm actually one of the few builders that, even on their website and on videos, I say competition is good for the consumer. Uh-huh. But when they all look the same, maybe an inch different, inch higher here, or your transom is a little wider. There's only so many ways you can do a hatch. Then what's left? You got price, then you got service. But if you already offer a good price, you already have a good service, you already have a good design, it's pretty hard to compete. So, I've seen a lot of brands come and go, and I think I personally have other designs that I'd like to do, and I'm slowly doing them. And case in point would be like the 17 and the 21 EVO. The boat may look very simple, but it's different than any other boat's ever been built, including our old past models. And you wouldn't know that until you physically get with a tape measure and you understand fluid dynamics. You start understanding, COG. You start understanding the difference between a 12-inch pad and a 4-inch pad. What kind of, dynamic stability. I think you get, obviously you get smarter as you get older. And I look at all the mistakes I've made in the past. And, materials. I think materials is a big thing we're working on right now. We have some new materials that we're going to bring to market. A lot of people don't realize it. We were one of the first on social media as a boat manufacturer as a whole.
Yeah.
We were third or fourth brand in the actual rec world to do closed molding. We were one of the first to do closed molding every part. So I'm talking about stringer and bulkheads done at the same time.
Yeah.
Even consoles. Everything has a flange. I mean, I could literally pick this up and take you out on the shop floor and show you some of the things that makes us different over everybody else. But, we have a climate-controlled infusion booth. A lot of people don't have that. And right now, it's been in the 30s and 40s, and all my plants at home are dead because we haven't had a cold like this in 10 years. But I'm still able to infuse because we have a, climate-controlled infusion room, which if you're building fiberglass and you live in Florida or in the southeast U.S., you're not used to having that kind of stuff. So what do? You either build the part, you pop it out, and it's got issues, you can try to save it, or you have to wait. And when you lose a week, 2 weeks, of that, it hurts. So you got to get smart. Infusion room, we gain back 90 days a year. So if it's too hot or too cold, we're able to still maintain production, which is a huge thing. But myself perspective, I feel like all the stuff that we put on your boat is what's going to break. It's not going to be the boat itself.
Yeah.
That I can tell you. I would have to back years ago question lamination, how we would do things. You see manufacturers always saying, our boat's the lightest and da 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 da. A lot of it's sales gimmicky because right now my biggest thing, and I've always said, let's build a boat that'll last. It may be 10 pounds heavier than the next guy, but you can't see 10 pounds over an 18-foot boat sitting static in the water.
Yeah.
I think I have a genuine relationship of respect, I think, for a guy like Tom Gordon that owns a skiff shop. He fixes a lot of boats. He's fixed his own for when he had his own brand. He's worked on our boats when I can't get a customer in and they need to get something done quick, or they'll go to a few other places. There's, I think generally there's a handful of guys that I say, if their hands are on your boat, you're going to be okay. And then there's probably 3 hands worth of people I'd say, please don't take your boat there. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing for me is that new materials. I have new designs. And I think, building a quality boat, because I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I was building with Stiffy. We did a push pole brand, a line of boats or a line of push poles for a boat manufacturer. I was wholesaling them for $275 and he was retailing them for $950. The only difference was it had a gold sticker and it had matte finish.
Yeah.
Now, but everybody wanted one because that guy said it was the lightest push pole. It was literally 2 ounces, over 21, 23 feet. But because everybody said it, they thought it was great. And then I don't pick up holes in the shop floor without liners and stuff in them because we like the boat to rest. We see guys doing that on the internet. I've seen one builder where he put the boat over his head, and then I talked to the guys that actually worked for the guy. They're like, yeah, they staged it. They had him set up with string and stuff. And, I want to build a good steak. I just don't want to do the sizzle,
Yeah.
Let's get a good steak. So I've always been in the middle for what we do for price. But the best part of a sandwich is what?
The meat.
There it is, baby. You can get the bread. It can be the best bread you want. You want, rye bread. You want double thick. You want, all this fancy bun. But, man, you want that double meat. I always feel like that's us, man,
Yeah.
Not that we're not, I don't like the word cheap. We're affordable. You got high end, you got low end, but we're priced in the middle. So if you're down here on the low end, you could spend a little bit more, especially if you're doing a loan, and you can get this. And if you're used to the high end stuff, I've lost sales. I actually had a guy not buy a boat for me because he thought our price was too cheap.
Oh, what the hell? That doesn't make any
But
sense.
He bought the other brand, and he realized that all the issues he had with them, and then when he went to go sell the boat, he didn't get what he thought, even though they told him that the resale would be so good.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, communication is key to any business. But without getting sidetracked, I would just say that it's the way that we build. The way that we design now is a lot different than what I did years ago. And I think we're almost to the top. I'm my biggest critic. I've never built a 10. It's unattainable. You can't have perfection. But damn it, let's try to get there.
Yeah.
And that's always been the mentality.
Dude, I love that analogy of we always want to have a good steak and not the sizzle. That analogy is perfect, dude. And see, I feel like especially on I originally bass fished, and I was looking at bass boats. There are a lot of bass boat companies that are just doing the sizzle right now, and people are getting their boats. I got a buddy who just bought a brand new boat, and he's like, dude, there are screws all in the bottom of my boat, and there are holes drilled in this random places where there shouldn't be holes. And it's you're starting to hear those horror stories more and more. So it's that analogy is perfect. And it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the bass boat market. So as a skiff manufacturer, we're taught about fit and finish. Bass guys are not.
Yeah.
It's all about speed. And then they have a secondary look. It's kind of like, when you're young and single, good from far, but far from good. If you're at the bar, it's all. I get inside of a bass boat. I'm blown away with what that consumer accepts because number one, they're chopped, hand laid.
Yeah.
There's very few brands that are doing infusion. One manufacturer, we actually went to Lake Hartwell Bassmasters Classic.
Yeah.
Probably 8 or 9 years ago. There was a boat manufacturer that was making a debut. The family used to own another brand.
Yep.
Gentleman came up to us. Yeah, I don't like to say brand names.
Yeah,
but
I don't either.
The individual came up to us and asked us if we wanted to contract infuse. And I said, man, I'd love to do that. I said, but I want to have ownership. 1%, 3%. He looked at me like, I said something vulgar. And he said, why would I do that? And I said, well, why would I show you and help you get to where you need only to drop us? But when I crawled around on all those boats, I saw plastic tubs.
Mm-hmm.
I saw metal hatches. I saw there's so much that I could take from what I've done as a skiff manufacturer and bring it to the bass market that I think would just blow a bass guy's mind.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
So
it's kind of crazy. They debuted that boat, and their big highlight was essentially looks like an aluminum, but it's fiberglass and it's all,
yeah, yeah,
and
they married the two. They did composite and they did
yeah,
fiberglass. I will say they did a really good job. And then I see other brands coming out. I think it's Tennessee now. They have a bass boat that costs 130, 150,000.
yeah,
But they're not selling now
mm-hmm.
because they oversaturated like a brand that we have in the skiff market. You go so high, you feel like you're getting a deal because they're like, hey, this boat normally costs 200.
Yeah.
But I'm going to sell it to you for 130. So,
yeah, we got two people around here with them. I don't live far from Lake Norman, and I think there's like 2 or 3 people in this area with that boat, and
yeah,
it's unreal.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
Is it any different though?
No.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So that's the sizzle.
Yeah,
but the steak would be. I mean, I don't know the bass market that well, but I can tell you that it was sad when I walked around and I saw, 5 brands now owned under one company. I get it, private equity conglomerate. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if I was buying a bass boat today, a quality bass boat, I would probably lean more towards a leaner version of a Bass Cat.
Yeah.
To, and I mentioned a name, but I'm not a bass guy. I would say I met Rick Pierce at ICAST, and I had an hour and a half introduction with him. And the brand, the culture that they have is huge, and the mentality that they have. Now, are they production, dealer oriented? Yes, but Ranger doesn't have that. You're not going to have that with. Is it Champion? I don't know.
Champion was one of the ones that got bought up under that.
Yeah.
So,
but they don't have that quality. I mean, you still have Allison, you still have Phoenix, you still have, or not Phoenix, you still have Falcon.
Yeah.
You have, is Gambler still around? I don't even know.
Gambler, I think is under a new name now.
They're not Gambler anymore.
No, they're under a new name. I forget what it's called though. Okay. But if you look at the two boats side by side, they're the exact same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Phoenix probably builds 1,000 boats a year, and that's not me.
Yeah.
And also, I wouldn't want like that higher end brand, that does saltwater boats that are also now doing that.
Yeah.
I would probably be more of a Phoenix guy. I'm not in the bass world, but like I said, I look at all social media stuff I can. I'm not one to go home, watch Netflix. After my kids go to bed, I'm usually looking at social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, some of the message boards, but I'm not looking at it, on a hobby perspective. I'm looking at it as I'm on screamandfly.com.
Yeah.
Okay, what do they want to see in a pad? What do they want to see in what kind of a prop? What makes this boat so special? I went down a rabbit hole the other night on a boat brand, and I was looking at cabins. Northwest Pacific, flounder and salmon boats.
Yeah.
I was like, could I put this on top of our 25 open? Yeah. So, I'm always looking at different things, but I love boats in general and fishing.
That's kind of how I am too, where it's like, I like looking at stuff. I used to be like that about bass boats, where it's like, now it's just, I'm like that with all boats. It's like, what can somebody do to, do like the next big thing? Like, you remember hearing that whole thing at like Lake X where they put a 300 Mercury racing motor with some crazy prop on it and put it at 101 miles an hour. It's like, it's crazy. And it's like, when's it going to end?
Lake X is pretty cool. That's only 40 minutes from here. We know the guys over there. So shout out to John Boyd at Lake X.
Yeah, dude.
We do some R&D testing with them. We have a good relationship with our OEMs, mainly Suzuki and Mercury. But man, I love glass. I love composites. Yeah. I love boats. So, dude, what you got next?
what's it called? Those new Suzukis are sweet too. Those matte black ones.
Yeah, the stealth finish.
Dude,
Yeah, it's
so cool. My buddy's got one. It's the quietest motor I've ever heard.
yeah.
It's like
Well, technology in general has gotten so good, it
yeah,
almost gets to a point where it's actually hit the pinnacle. So now you start wondering, I always tell people, look at your service, what's around you, okay? Shop horsepower, because I'll say this all the time. Not every brand makes a good motor across the board. One brand might make a 115 that's better. The other one owns the 90 market, or
yeah,
one might 20 horse market, and the other one owns the 30. But I always shop different horsepower segment, and then we default back to brand. But as a whole, technology's gotten so insane.
it's
I mean,
nuts.
my gosh, look at live scoping, man. It's starting to hit. Last 2 years, it hit the saltwater
Yeah,
scene. You guys have had it for a few years, obviously, before us, but we're always late in the game on that kind of stuff. I think the bass guys are always ahead on electronics, and then it trickles over to the skiff guys.
yeah, for sure. That live scope stuff, like it's insane. It's insane how touchy of a subject it is across all markets right now.
I mean, okay, so here's my take on that. Let's talk about that real quick because they say it's cheating now. Okay, 5 years ago, drones were out. There's guys drone fishing for tarpon,
Yeah,
and some people had a problem with that. Listen, it's technology.
yeah,
We have a GPS now. 20 years ago, it looked like Pac-Man.
yeah, exactly.
Somebody said it was cheating. But at the end of the day, if that's what you want to do, and it's your business, your prerogative, that's cool. Me as a boat manufacturer, if that's what you want to put on the boat, it's fine. I have a rule at East Cape. If it doesn't jeopardize the safety of you and the integrity of the boat, we're game for it.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, we've done pink, sparkle. We've done, any kind of crazy console. If you want live scope with 3 graphs up front, we've done it.
Yeah.
But again, that's a personal thing. I'm not judging people. I just want a boat to build, and I want it to be a damn good one.
Yeah.
And we've never built the same boat twice. I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, dude, that's like it for sure. And it's
Yeah.
it's cool. I like the skiff side a little bit more because there's so much you can do with a skiff, and it's almost like universal, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get into that too because I'm gonna prove how well a skiff can work in other applications.
Oh yeah,
So
dude, that one we were talking about it earlier. I think it's a couple questions up here, but yeah, we'll
yeah.
get into it because I've fished
Okay.
I fished one of the Escapes a while back, and
Okay.
dude, it was great.
Okay. Well,
But
thank you, brother.
no problem. So it's like you guys have multiple boats used for kind of like many different purposes. So it's like, can
Hmm.
you explain the differences between your different boats and kind of like how?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say pre-COVID, pre-supply chain, we had a lot of models. And again, my thinking, I thought you needed them all. My aspect has always been, and I'm going to give a shout out to a guy. When I was a rep and I was selling to all the boat manufacturers in the Southeast, Scott Deal owned Hughes Maverick, Pathfinder, and Cobia. He was also one of the guys that told me there would never be a pull and troll zone and, no motor
Yeah.
zones. And stick to selling push poles and fly line and fly rods, Kevin, because I wanted to build a boat. But, he was so good at business, and growth. It's just insane. So, what was the other question you had? What was that question you just asked? Because I just got sidetracked.
Oh, you're
'cause I
good.
was so
Don't worry
thought
about
I
it.
lost. What was?
What's like? Can you explain the differences between some of your different
Oh
boats?
yes. Okay. So he told me this. Okay. He told me a long time ago. He didn't want. That's where I was going with this. Um, he he didn't want anybody else to have to go anywhere else to look for a boat. One stop shop.
Yeah.
I used to have the same mentality. One stop shop. Let's do a small boat. A 7 weight, just like fly rods. You want a full quiver.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't want to have different brands. Oh, I got a Scott here. I got a Sage here. I got a Loomis here. This is my St. Croix. But at the end of the day, I used to have that mentality. But nowadays, I think you can take a boat and through rigging and assembly and the power and the lamination and how you do it, you can make one boat do multiple things. And that's where the 17 EVO comes in that we'll talk about later. But the very first boat was the Gladesman. It was designed as and in my mind, it is actually the first micro skiff because it was the first boat that you could pull, row, troll, and power. And you could paddle it.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom beam on that thing was 27 inches. So my thought process back then is like a freighter canoe, because I used to love to fish the Everglades and the no motor zones over in um, Mosquito Lagoon, down by the Cape. Back then, you had to have a Cars Park pass, and I had a family member that worked there, and I was able to get a pass, which was a golden ticket to a good fishery.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't have a motor. But being that it was shaped like a broadhead arrow, wider in the front, narrow in the back, like a double-ended canoe, it would split the water, bring it back. Very specialized. So then there's that. So then we cut it in half, widened it. We came out with the Lossman. Designed for stability. It was designed for draft. Back when I started Eastcape, there wasn't a lot of brands. I would think there was Hell's Bay, Maverick Hughes. There was Backcountry, but it sold. Hogue, which sold. You had Dolphin Boats, which Michael Courtney owned at the time. I used to sell to him. We were friends when I was a sales rep. When I started Eastcape, obviously he didn't want to talk to me because I was competition. Fin and Feather, Ginu. I went to a gentleman by the name of Pooger that owns Custom Ginu, and I asked him to take his Ginu and widen it to what I wanted out of a Gladesman. And he wouldn't do it. So I was still, hell-bent on proving everybody wrong, including the brand that never gave me a free boat. So I did exactly what I wanted to do. But then the Lossman. So then the next thing was, as we came out with a Lossman, and one of my competitors, who was new on the scene, started calling it the Wetman. He found a weak point and instead of the Lossman. And so I was like, okay, so we'll go back to the drawing board, because back then everybody said we could build a boat, rig a boat, finish it out, price it, service it, but we couldn't design a boat. So then I went back, tail tucked between our legs, butt hurt. We came out with what we called the Cayman. And that boat was ahead of its time. That one boat changed us, because when we came out with that boat, even if you were a guy, you were brand loyal to something else, everybody loved that boat. And that boat changed the industry because, number one, it was the first boat with curved spray rails, because back then, the Gladesman and the Lossman had it's called a style line. So the shear line's at the top of the boat, the chine's at the bottom. In the middle, it's called a style line. Well, we had a little spray rail built into it, but it was basically just going straight up, and then it would go out an inch and then come up.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't catch the water. Hell's Bay had that under the Chris Morjon effect. I was like, that's great, but it's not good enough. It doesn't catch the water. Water doesn't follow a leading edge. I feel like that's bad. It needs to be updated. So we were the first to take an oversized spray rail and put a curve in it, because if you walk up to an Eastcape, shoot a hose to it, it actually goes up and it shears it down. There's no interruption.
Yeah.
And by the time the wind's grabbed it, which is what makes a boat wet, and, because it's throwing it down, by the time the wind grabs it and tries to throw it on you, you've already gone by. So the Cayman was the first to have that. The Cayman was the first to have a triangle sponson or key slot, as the old timers call it, where the motor's tucked in the back. So you had two little pods. So everybody else was like this. So they either had to do a jack plate to get it to set back so you could turn.
Yeah.
Or they had to cut into the mold, because 4 strokes were on the scene and they were all set up before with 2 strokes. So now they wouldn't turn. Well, we saw that 4 strokes were coming, and we wanted to catch all the water so you wouldn't need spray rails like some of the other brands we were competing with. So we made a triangle. So now it could fit, turn, full lock, not need a jack plate, not need spray rails, and we could hang a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke. So we did that. And then the other thing is we were the first to have higher sides. So when I was prototyping, I'd always put the boat in the water, walk to the back corner, with 2 guys. And if water would come in, when the secondary stability kicks in, I would add to it. The old analogy was you want low freeboard for wind and everything else. I will go on the record and say right now, I've fished with some of the top guides in the world on their brand boats, our boats. I've never seen a dude say, hey, Kevin, wait, let me turn the boat at 2 o'clock and let me sit for that cast. Because if you got a competent angler on the bow, okay, he's going to do the backhand cast, the matador cast. He's going to roll cast. He's going to pick it up, and he's going to shoot it back and get where you need to go, and especially if you're narrow creek.
Yeah.
I like to be able to. We have a video called Riding High. It was one of the first tarpon videos that won an award when the fly fishing film tour started, and it shows off of Boca Grande Pass. It shows 2 anglers hooked up to tarpon on the back sponson of a boat. That was never done before because guys used to walk to the back corner of the boat and water would come into your back deck. Here you are on an East Cape, that secondary stability kicks in and you still have freeboard. So I've always liked higher freeboard. I've always, liked it pinch transom, but over time I changed my design. Even today, I saw a boat manufacturer do an overhead shot, and they had it wider in the front, narrow in the back. That's old school.
Yeah.
It's not. You don't need it anymore. You don't. For smaller canoes and kayaks, I get it, but for a big skiff, you don't need that. That's old school technology.
Yeah.
But the next model after that was a Vantage, and that really did it because everybody said then we had the Cayman, but we didn't have a tarpon boat. And at the time, we were obsessed with tarpon, mainly Mark, my partner at the time. And we took the Cayman, we widened it, and, started getting to the spray rails. And I said, okay, if we're going to go after this market, I want to make sure that, it's insanely dry. So we tripled the actual spray rail. So, again, huge, massive spray rail. When we first debuted the Vantage, a lot of people loved it, and then the other people hated it. They didn't know what to think. But when we showed the boat running through water and we were showing the YouTube videos and stuff of it in action, then everybody jumped on board. That's a hell of a platform, and it's the only model still today that's in production. We retired all the older models, like the Cayman, the Glide, the Gladesman, the Fury, the Lostman scooter deck. I also don't sell molds, so I have IP on everything. I keep them, so I have a separate warehouse just for molds.
Yeah.
But then the Vantage. I'll tell you a funny story. We helped one manufacturer years ago sue another manufacturer because we all thought the industry, that guy was shady, and I helped this manufacturer go after him. Well, the other manufacturer who got sued by the guy we were helping would call us drunk at like 2 a.m., leave nasty messages. And we were designing a dry version of the Lostman. And I didn't want to hurt resale value, and I thought the boats were dramatically different on the hull. So literally I looked at synonyms.com, and, it was Fury. The synonym under words Fury was this other manufacturer's intro model after getting sued. So it was kind of like my back end way of saying, take this, buddy. But I wish I would have recorded the calls that this gentleman would leave at the time owning this brand, because it was hilarious. We'd come in, and back in, before all this digital stuff that we have nowadays, like now I have Grasshopper and all this stuff. It's emailed, it's text messaged and stuff. But I would walk in the office and I would hit play, and we'd always, I'd sit there with a pen and paper and I'd write down whoever called, during the night. And I remember getting these messages. This dude was like slurring his words, cussing at 2 a.m. It would say message 210, and it would just go into it. And it was just ranting. But that's classic stuff. I always joked, said I'd write a book called Skiff Wars. Because I've seen a lot in 23 years, and, being transparent, I laugh at some of the stuff I wrote because I used to get in fights online on the message boards, and I come across stuff, every now and then back in the day, and I'm like, man, I was an idiot. Why did I even engage? So, yeah. So, then after the Vantage, I think it was the new era, and that's getting into the EVOs, the 25, and stuff. So, I think today, with the lineup that we have, you really don't need a full quiver of boats.
Yeah.
For me, I always like to know that my brain did something right because, like, for example, I have an area in my office where I keep old stuff that I write down over the years. But 12 years ago, I wanted to do a 6-weight, 8-weight, 12-weight, name the models after that.
Yeah.
And today I see a boat manufacturer doing that. A lot of people don't realize that we were the first to have hatches open straight back on a skiff. And let me tell you why we did that. Everybody does that now. Everybody. I think the only brand left, is Maverick with the HPX to the side, because the Lostman was to the side. The classic Hell's Bays were to the side. And the problem was, even with a dry launch trailer, I'm short. So when I would walk up to my own boat, the Lostman, okay, and I would have to get something out of the back deck, the way the hatches would open, I couldn't get over it and I couldn't go from the front or the back. I had to climb in. So when we were designing the Vantage, we decided, and I remember I was in my office, Mark looked at me and he used to bang on the window. And I looked over and I remember he was like Back to the Future. And then, somebody thought it was flaps on an airplane, coming in off of the carrier.
Yeah.
But we tooled it so you could have hinges go like this, or it could go like that.
Yeah.
And then I remember another manufacturer copied us, and then in the video they do the walk around on the new model, and they talk about it, and you see the guy pause, and I know he's thinking, well, Eastcape already has done this, but and I don't mean to ramble, dude. I'm just going
dude, you're good.
Timeline here.
You're good.
So much stuff over the years, dude. Don't even go down the fence on carbon fiber and stuff. We were doing that stuff years ago, and I feel like a lot of people, that's the sizzle now.
Yeah.
They don't understand what the stake is of the carbon and what it brings. Believe it or not, if I was building a boat for me personally, man, bro, I would do surfboard cloth. I would do probably balsa core. Wood.
Yeah.
Because wood is good if you build it right. But the market doesn't do that. So, we don't have any wood in our boats. The only thing we ever did that was wood was the first 50 Gladesmans. We did pressure treated plywood for the rod holders. And it wasn't until after, we realized that they were not lasting. Then we went to starboard. But the boats themselves, they were so ahead of their time. I mean, nobody knew what vacuum infusion was in 2003. And how we got there is I went to a defense expo and met a gentleman who was, through a friend, doing radar dishes for the military, and he was infusing. But in the marine side, nobody was doing that. Nobody knew what infusion was. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew it was the best thing that I read in this composite magazine and this show, and I wanted to do that in boats. And I remember we ran to Home Depot. We used to have to get our hoses, our T-fittings. That's where everybody now uses the Home Depot bucket, because in 2007, I think, was our first YouTube video. You could see us using Home Depot buckets for infusion. We actually we weren't smart enough to use PVC for the clamps. So if any builders are watching this video right now and they're infusing, they'll know. But back in the day, we used to use toilet paper rolls because we weren't smart enough to think of using PVC to kink the line to close it, or feed it, so to speak. But we were so early in infusion, it's not even funny. And then speaking of infusion, I think the first 100 Eastcapes we used to infuse, how do I say this? Naked ladies under the decks. Yeah, I used to ask people because I was single. Dude, are you into blondes, brunettes? What's your type? And depending on what mood we were in, we used to laminate them underneath where the Coast Guard hen list is, the hidden hen. Nobody would know, and I'd randomly get a call 3 years, 5, 10. I got one about, I think it was about a year ago. Dude's rewiring his own boat, and he calls me up freaking out. He's like, dude, there's a naked chick under my boat. And I was like, well, send me a picture. I don't know how it got there. And then after I got it, I was like, dude, that was us. And we stopped because we had a couple older couple to our shop, and we had like literally 3 decks upside down, and we had them in the deck. And I remember, very nice couple, very put together, very mannered. She goes, "Oh my gosh!" And that's when I felt this big. And I was like, "Oh man, it's not a lifestyle. It's not a lifestyle business anymore." You see some brands. We were a lifestyle business, and I remember we'd shut the shop on a Tuesday. We'd go fish. But after that couple came, we're like, "Okay, we got to grow up. We can't do that." But man, we used to do all kinds of stupid stuff. We tried the skin to win game. I was dating my wife at the time. We hired an erotic model to do this Eastcape magazine because I thought, hey, if this girl's comfortable with the clothes off, wearing a skimpy bikini is not going to be bad. And it sounded cool at first. And then, we had older customers with kids. Then I'm, dating now my wife, and she's an amazing lady. And I'm like, this is not the image that I want. So we've done a lot of stupid stuff. But, we tried. If it didn't work, then we go to something else. But, this is stuff I don't usually... I'm on a podcast saying this, but I think I'm being very honest and upfront right now.
Oh, yeah.
Probably much, but
Dude, it's
at the
okay.
end of the day, they were all purpose built. They were either purpose built about destination. The Lossman was Mosquito Lagoon, Texas focused, and flood tide fishing. Gladesman was anywhere no motor zone, pull and troll zone, anywhere that you wanted a boat and you were passionate, because I was huge into kayak fishing, because in my office up on the wall, that was 1999, or excuse me, that one was 2001. But in 1999, I was doing the first kayak fishing
Oh,
tournaments.
hell yeah.
I remember Scotty rod holders told me that their rod holders were not meant for kayaks. They were meant for downriggers, because I sent them a picture of their triple rod holder on a kayak. And the owner at the time, the old man, he actually said I was doing wrong to his product. But now, look at the industry, look at how it went. But so then the Cayman we designed that to go after, the waterman and the professional. It had higher sides, bigger spray rail, it had a better back end. It didn't hook or bow steer.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear about a boat today, how great it is over everything. And then after a boat's been out for a while, 5-6 years later, you start to hear the negative about the design, and you feel good because, now I can look at a boat. I don't need to run a boat. I can look at a boat and I could say, I know what it's going to do. I know what to expect. And also because of technology, there's still a lot of backyard builders. They get a set of plans, they build a boat for themselves, they think it's cool, they start a boat company. Brother, they don't understand. They don't have the money, okay? And I didn't either. I had to rob Peter to pay Paul to get where I am. I went months during '08 without, a paycheck, but I didn't have to lay any of my guys off. I was dating my wife, and I remember the first few times, she's like, you want to come over for dinner? Well, it turned into a ritual. She's like, you're over here all the time. And then when she finally comes to my house, I had no food in the fridge. I wasn't paying myself. I owned a boat company, but we were broke. I always tell people, you're buying from a new builder or startup, but can he service you?
Yeah.
If the boat is done, can he help you? I used to tell people, during '08, we saw a lot of brands go out. One brand in particular is still around today. They've had 3 owners. Well, when it went out the second time, they took deposits, they ripped off vendors, and what pissed me off is it had to make me work harder, because a motor company is like, hey, Kevin, we want you to do our motors, but we need to go COD. Well, I found out later they had an open account with that builder, and that builder ripped them off for $380,000.
Jeez. Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
And I remember they coming to me during '08, and they're like, hey, we want to open an account. I was like, why? You didn't give me the special treatment back then because I didn't come from a certain brand or because I wasn't a famous guy. Nobody handed Eastcape anything. We had to bust our butt to get there. And those are the times that, I say that make me who I am today.
Yeah.
Because I have a rule in my shop. If somebody comes to the shop, if I grab my iPad right now and I walk out there, I will tell you the first rule that I tell those guys is they know, don't call me sir, okay? Don't make me be a boss. We're all a team.
Yeah.
Okay? I put my pants on the same way as you do. Hell, we didn't even have a time clock until probably 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
Holy crap. That's pretty cool,
you're a grown man. You know what you need to do. You know what your hours are.
Yeah.
If you're not here, Rob, who's still with us today, is everybody's pretty much still here. You got Rob, Chris, Dylan, Pete floats in and out. He's with our welder, Jeremy. We had our own weld shop. We were welding for our competitors. And I had one competitor, once he found out we owned the place, he gave us a bounce check. And he made it 6 months. And then when we finally got the check, but we knew how their ordering was because he would fax over their order on a Wednesday and say they needed it by Friday. We would stop what we were doing for our customers to service them. And Scotty, my guy who lived out on the coast, would take the product over there. And it wasn't until that builder brought another brand that they told him who we were. But this industry is it's insane. I'll tell you another thing. During the supply chain, we helped a builder get motors. He never said thank you. Everybody in the shop said, dude, don't do it. Don't do it. And I was like, no, we're in a different era now. I feel like we have a brotherhood.
Yeah.
I try to be a good person. I always try to go for face value. I can tell you a lot of people think I'm a good salesperson. I don't think they understand me because I'm the kid that came from nothing. My dad was a truck driver. And, I mean, how do I say this? It's like, if you want something bad enough, you'll work hard for it. You'll make sacrifices. And, you know, can you get with your team? You know, Rob came into the shop one day and he said, morale sucks. And this guy wanted to quit. Well, that was a wake-up moment. As an owner, you can either embrace it or you just shove it off. Most guys shove it off, okay? I don't want that. So what do we need to do? So he told us, and we did it. So we changed the culture. We changed everything. I think we're the only builder that every month does breakfast or lunch for the employees. Every month.
Yeah.
We do birthday parties. It's nothing big. It's cookies, popsicles. We sing happy birthday. We do quarterly outings. I used to post it on the internet, but then I felt like I was patting myself on the back, and I don't like to do that either. So we don't do that. But we do quarterly outings. Last one we had was at the park. We had kickball, and we did. We had picnic lunch. We had all the outdoor games, volleyball, basketball. We had an itinerary. We went to Aquatica. We top golf, Andretti carts.
Oh,
you
dude,
know,
that's sweet.
you start. Yeah, but we do that, and then we do Christmas bonuses. We do a Christmas dinner. We do a manager's dinner where it's wives and staff. I don't know any other boat manufacturer that does that, especially at our size.
I don't even know some bigger companies that do that, like outside of the boating industry.
No, but here's the thing. I've always said this on video, and I mean it. You are nothing without your people. Okay?
100%.
I see certain brands, ones that are so ego, it's after their name. Okay, you know, it's. Dude, it's not a Kevin Finn boat company, okay? It takes a team of people. You know, the Army has, you know, they have people there. Everybody has a job to do, but you can't do it as a team. If if I lost my guys, we'd be screwed. But if you treat your people well, you treat them with respect, let them give input. Tanner helped us develop the 17. Certain guys in the shop bring design elements over. Like, Kevin, this is cool. How about this? And I look at him like, you know what, man? I think you're right. Chris and Infusion. Kevin, this is how we're going to do it, man. Trust me. This is what we see. And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
No, let's go, man. So, just culture, dude.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for everyone.
Yeah.
I think everybody.
Yeah, every business. But in the skiff world, it's huge,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
How many guys could say right now in the skiff world and the boat build business, in our segment, okay, that's either factory direct or in the inshore game that has employees for 20 years.
Not man.
And made one of them a partner. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Dude, so
and here's the thing. I'm still around.
It's nuts. Well, dude, you guys have been around forever, and it's pretty cool. So we were talking about this the other day. You built a skiff for the guy for the person that was in charge of my high school bass fishing team. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Rod. You built him a Vantage. Yeah, you built Rod a Vantage, and that boat was the most tricked out thing I've ever seen. Yeah. It fished awesome.
Yeah. That was Riley. That was Riley's catch.
Yeah.
Before that, I forget the gentleman's name. We made a boat out of a Vantage for Arizona for swim bass fishing. I forget the crew or the team he was on, but I don't know why more people don't use a flats boat for bass boats, because 100%. Scott Steiner, a really good buddy of ours, he's a good customer. I think he's owned 5 of our boats. His son at the time was in the bass fishing circuit, and they won states out of the Vantage, and then they took it to nationals. And this is many years ago. And there was a picture that he took, and it showed like 100-something bass boats, and then it showed the Vantage by itself. It's quiet, it's shallow, it's dry, it's fast. Yes, it didn't have the gunnel support to keep your rods from falling off, but we did the same rod straps with the mechanical feature underneath the gunnel.
Yeah.
But I felt like for whatever weakness that the Vantage had, it had so many pluses, and rods was a perfect example of that. That thing had bottom coat on it. We did slick bottom.
Yeah,
it was actually 3 miles an hour faster.
Oh, yeah.
It's still in service today. The guy who owns it loves it. He took the wrap off of it. But, I would say that 5% of what we build see, 90% freshwater use.
Yeah.
It was such a sick boat.
Dude,
we took that one to ICAST.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we actually took to the Classic at Hartwell, because at that time, nobody saw all grip. Nobody knew what two-tone was. Nobody in the bass world really knew what C-deck was.
Yeah.
So we only had one boat in this little booth, but we had everybody. I remember meeting everybody from like, Phoenix, Basscat, Ranger, Vexus, everybody coming over asking what these materials were, the process. They never saw the laminate exposed like that. They didn't understand how clean that was. The typical bass guys, they paint it or they two-piece mold it or something. But anyways, yeah, that was a sick boat. Riley's Catch. That was cool, man. We made it as close as we could to a bass boat.
Dude, the coolest part of that boat was the sea deck. I never saw a sea deck at that point. Like you were saying, honestly, dude, we might have been at that same classic that year.
You probably were.
Yeah.
I remember that's where I met the guy Malash, and I bought a bunch of Malash swim baits, but I had him design them as greenbacks.
Yeah.
For tan. And I bought a dozen of those things, and then I gave a couple of them out to friends as gifts. But that was eye-opening for me. And I'll be honest with you, as a saltwater guy, I never saw so much glitter in my life. I still don't understand why you guys love glitter so much. Dude, on boats.
The coolest part of that boat that Rod had, besides the sea deck, was that rod holder he had back there. You remember that rod holder y'all put on it, dude? That thing was sick.
Yeah, we used to do all kind of, we still do stuff, but again, you got to go back to what does the customer want. I do believe less is more. We'll build a boat with, disco balls and bumping lights, but at the end of the day, we've had a few boats roll out of here that look like 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound box. But I go back to, if that's what you want, that's what you get, man. And it makes me feel good when guys are like, Kevin, I've wanted an Escape so long. I talk to guys all the time that are buying in the second market. They're like, Kevin, I've wanted an Escape forever. I'm so proud to have it. I can't stand when I see guys crap on other dudes' boats because it didn't cost $100K.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're buying a boat from us that it's 30,000 or 200,000.
Yeah.
I just want you in the brand, man.
Oh yeah.
So
anyway. Personally, what's your favorite boat in the lineup right now?
Ooh, okay. My favorite boat of all time is probably going to be the Gladesman or the Cheeky, because that's where it started. You never forget where you came from. You want to take that and you want to keep going. Because I'm in love with the smaller stuff. The Cheeky's the canoe. We've only built a handful of those over the years, but it was the first canoe ever to be vacuumed infused. It was a 2-piece mold that you had to butterfly open, and it has 48 bolts on the flange. So you had to open it up, gel coat it, and as you're gelling it, you had to close it up. Then you had to come back and brush inside of it to seal the gel, and then tacky tape the seam on the outside to get a good air, and then to load it to infuse, get the material in, you had to use a metal squeegee, because it was the only canoe still to this day that has a sharp entry like a sea kayak.
Damn.
It doesn't have an 1 or 2 inch rounded nose, like a razor, and that thing has no rocker in it. So it was designed for flat water, tripping, or poling. So it was purposely built.
Yeah.
And we made them with poling strakes or without. And most canoes have a rocker, meaning a curve in it. I didn't want that. I wanted something that would track straight and true, be very, very fast. And I love and geek out over smaller canoes and kayaks and stuff. So I would say for that, it would be the Gladesman and it would be the Cheeky. And then for today, honestly, it's going to have to be the 17 EVO and the 21 EVO. The 21 EVO actually I'm going to build for myself, because where I'm at right now in my life with my kids, it's the best boat. It's not too big to go out by yourself. And, it's not small, so I could bring people.
Yeah.
And it's a boat, realistically, I know it's going to blow your mind, but because of the design of the boat and how wide the waterline beam is, with a 250, 300, it'll float in static 8 inches.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 8 inches of water.
Wow.
Now, yes, because, again, in the skiff world, most manufacturers only want to talk about what's at the top, max beam. So I'll get a guy on the internet that's boat shopping, and I'll give you two situations where a competitor doesn't listen to what the customer's saying. I had a gentleman call me up and say, Kevin, I want the shallowest boat that you have. Okay. And I was like, oh, wow. He goes, I want to go skinny. I said, okay. He said, I called brand blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, because I always ask, how did you find us? Who are you talking to? How soon are you looking to make a decision? And then I asked him the other question, the most important one. do you pole? This dude said no. And I said, okay, I just want to hear this right. You want the shallowest boat? Yeah, I want to get skinny, skinny, skinny. But you don't pole. No. Okay. You use a trolling motor 100% of the time. I said, sir, you don't need a skinny skiff. He's like, what do you mean? I said, a trolling motor takes 16 inches of water to operate.
Yeah.
Not draft of the boat. It takes 16 inches of water. You go shallower than that, it'll cavitate, and then you're spooking fish. He said, Kevin, nobody caught that. I said, sir, you can have a Vantage, you can have a Fury, you can have a Cayman, you can have a Glide, you can have an EVO 18. I said, but if you troll all the time and you're going to fish a lot by yourself, I don't know, man. I'm thinking an EVO, a Fury, this was a while ago. And he goes, Kevin, I'm going to order a boat from you because you understood. He goes, I don't know what boat I want, but you caught that, nobody else did.
Yeah.
And another one, Simrad just changed from the EVO 3 to the EVO 4. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, everybody down here wants to use Florida Marine Tracks. Well, Florida Marine Tracks doesn't have it set up yet for EVO 4. But I had a guy on the phone saying I'm getting ready to order a boat from another brand, and they're selling me the EVO 4. And I said, well, what chip are you going to use? He goes, all I use is Florida Marine Tracks. I said, well, did they tell you that it's not out yet, and it probably won't be out for another 6 to 8 months? He goes, no. So that was a red flag.
Yeah.
Got that guy on board. So at the end of the day, I see so much stupid stuff. Just listening to the customer, and they'll tell you everything. So.
Oh yeah. So, last year I saw a little teaser project of something for us, us trout guys. Can you speak about the drift boat you guys have been building?
Yeah. So the story on the drift boat is my dear friend Denny. So Denny Malachy and I have known each other a long time. So Denny was with years ago. I'm going back 90s. So Denny was with another brand, Hell's Bay, and before I was even remotely starting Eastcape, well-respected guide in the lagoon. There's a lot of good guides that have come out of the lagoon. He was one of them.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I started Eastcape. Him, another buddy of mine, Mark Benson, watching me. They finally became customers. I became really close with Denny because he got tired of the lagoon, basically sold his stuff, went up to the mountains, bought a house. And when he built his cabin, he'd invited us to stay there. And Denny's very hard-headed. His nickname was Captain Cranky. And he's like, you're not renting this place out, because he put it on a rental program. And I tried to rent it, and he looked up who was renting it, and he barraged me. He goes, you will not give me an effing dollar. You're going to go stay there. And basically, my wife and I got married on New Year's Eve. So literally for 10 years, he would always leave the cabin for me for the week after Christmas to New Year's.
Yeah.
Well, he came up probably 4 years ago, and he's like, stop fishing on the shoreline, okay, in the creeks. He goes, we're going to do a drift boat tour. We're in the drift boat with a buddy of ours, Kenny, One Fly, and he's telling me we need to build a drift boat. And I'm sitting in, I won't mention the brand. I'm sitting in this boat, and it looks like, a chopper gun, Carolina Skiff finish. And he tells me that boat's $20,000. And I'm laughing at him. I go, you're kidding me. He goes, no. He goes, I'm telling you, Kevin, you could do something. He goes, with what your mind is and what I have and what we're capable of and what I know, we can do something cool. And I looked at him and I said, for all these years, you wouldn't let me do anything with you. Why don't we do this? I'll build a drift boat if you help me. And he goes, Kevin, we're in. We spent more money on this drift boat than we did the 25. People don't realize how much money. We spent over $600,000 in design.
Holy crap.
Yeah. People don't realize we actually built the boat 3 times, and we got it wrong until the 3rd. So we wanted to do a skiff style, okay? And the problem with the current market, now I will give credit where credit's due. Recently there was a brand on social media, Let 'Em Run. They're infusing. They just did a finished cap. We actually have CAD drawings 4 years ago where we wanted to do like a skiff, a 2-piece drift boat. I measured all the drift boats out there, okay? And they're all the same. All the skiff style drift boats are off maybe 1/2 inch, 1 inch. It's like somebody, I don't know who was first. I'll let them fight over it. But everybody else copied them. So what I found out was everything is literally 70 inches at the top, 60 inches at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we can do this. So, Adam was like, all right, I can't believe we're going to do a drift boat. And, we started doing data, and we thought that, there's 300 drift boats a year being built. And we're like, okay, we can be a market interruption. We're down in the Southeast. We can get to the Carolinas quicker than somebody getting a boat from the Rocky Mountain area. We can build year round. What I found out later, though, was that up there they build seasonally, and then basically they sit on the inventory and they roll it out in the spring, and a guide walks up and just buys a boat.
Yeah.
And that's it. Nobody really orders a boat, so to say. But we changed the drift boat market because I had guys on Instagram laughing at us in the trout world, especially when I showed the spray reels, and I was talking about spray reels, and they're saying spray reels on a drift boat. Well, Denny and I and a couple buddies hit the Watauga, and where the drift boats are at the dam, usually that's where everybody launches the inflatables.
Yeah.
Or the Holston, where you have the dam you go over.
Yeah.
We literally have video where we're going down and water's coming up the side and it goes down. I was in the other brands and we have water coming inside the boat. And they're like, yeah, that's what just happens. You got to get used to that. Our boat was egg-shaped, not like a typical rectangle pram.
Yeah.
Same rocker as everybody, but it had spray rails. It was lighter. So what in my mind was is we were going to introduce the shell first, get some sails, call it the Drift Light, and then later do the 2-piece version and call it the Deluxe. Well, let them run, beat us to it now. So I literally, I don't post on other manufacturers' website, but I posted on their site on Instagram, I think a week ago, and I put great minds think alike, congrats guys, because I feel in that industry, they're one of the few leading it.
Yeah.
But we were already there years ago. But I wanted to have like an NRS raft or a flycraft have sex with, a skiff style hard boat.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We had the president of NRS come up to us, to Denny and I at ICAST, and say he's never seen a thigh brace that was a strip-in basket, a rod holder, cup holder, and finished out so nice, out of glass.
Yeah.
But the drift boat was cool. It weighed, 225 pounds fully rigged. It was so light on the water, you could still crab it. You could back row. It did everything that you thought. And because it sat higher than everybody else, everybody thought that it had low sides. Well, what they don't understand is the shear line in the middle was the same height as an adipose, a hide, a RO, a clack, a Pavati.
Yeah.
They were all the same. The difference is everybody in the drift boat skiff world, the shear line curved with the rocker in the front and curved with the back. But everybody talks about the wind. Well, if you just drew a straight line from the center out, that's what we did.
Yeah.
We eliminated. You look at like a Pavati helium model and you draw a line straight across. That's what I did.
Yeah. Dude, that.
And I took, there's a flat shear line. Then our style line, remember like the skiffs in the middle.
Yeah.
We put our spray rail in, which works. Okay. And then we did the lamination that we have. And then we took, the base and stuff and we infused into the laminate. We've been infusing since 2003. So we were technically one of the first boat brands to actually infuse, out of everybody today. And the drift boat market, I think there was one brand that started infusing, and I'm trying to think of their name. Two good guys, one's a guide or they're both guides, and I think it's a seasonal thing the way they build. Boutique style drift boats.
Yeah.
But they were still using wood and stuff, and I just didn't understand their logic. But we may bring back the drift because, we retired it right now because we were focusing on our skiff production, the 21, and we only have so many slots to build.
Yeah.
We're not the type of company that's like, hey, we're going to, build 800 boats this year. But if you have a 25 footer sitting here and then you have another boat here, an 18 or a 20 or 21, my passion is the smaller boats, but that doesn't pay the payroll. That doesn't give the raise. Doesn't do the, you have to fit it. So we were building in cycles, Ritz-Carlton ordered a fleet of drift boats. We didn't show the video, but they had another brand and they're like, Kevin, this is night and day difference. So the analogy I'm going to tell your listeners right now is when you row the drift, it's like if you were rowing everybody else's skiff-style drift boat by yourself with nothing in it and nobody on it but you. That's how it rows when you have 3 people.
That is awesome.
So you know the difference. When you get in a boat and you're rowing, and you're like, you got your buddies and stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, you're digging deep.
Yeah.
No, this thing is so playful. When you're by yourself, it's even crazier. So at the end of the day, it doesn't blow around. Everybody's like, oh, how does it track? no, it's the same bottom as everybody else.
Yeah.
60 inches, brother. So, but anyways, the drift was really cool. We're probably going to have to do a two-take podcast.
Yeah.
Because I know that I a little bit. I can't believe it's already been an hour, dude.
Dude, yeah, we just chopping it up. But yeah, dude, we only got a couple questions left.
All right.
I'll hit you with one. What rivers have you tested around here? Tested on in the Western North Carolina area?
Well, it's been everywhere actually. So we had guys up in the Midwest. I had a gentleman and I don't know what you call it, an influencer. He took it up to the Rocky Mountain area, took it everywhere. We had customers up there. Our rep for that area was also the rep for an ore company. He took it around to a lot of places. You know, it's funny. Some people are so scared of something new. They all want it, but they secretly don't. It's like as a kid, you might like lima beans, but you don't want to tell your buddies because nobody wanted to eat them. But you secretly love it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those kind of things where if we got a group of guides, I remember we got around 15 dudes that are all sitting there looking at it weird. And it wasn't until 3 or 4 rode it, you know, and then it was the next day that we'd get the phone call. That thing's the sickest thing I've ever been in. How can I get one? Do you have a guide program? So then I knew we were on to stuff. But I mean, Denny took it everywhere. And then the guys over at Blue Ridge Fly Shop, Drew and those guys. Yeah. I mean, we did a product test with them. They still have Old Blue or Old Gray, as Denny calls it, and use. We gave them the prototype, but I mean, we've thrown it off of rock ledges, off of a bridge. We had one fly off the interstate. Denny's coming back from one of the trade shows, and the knot that goes to the bow eye came undone, and the thing literally blew up in the air on I-75 coming home from the Atlanta show 2 years ago. No, not 2 years ago, 4 years ago. And the oar locks busted, which were metal. All the seats busted, which back then they were the Millennium seats or whatever they were. Not the seats we're using now, which are heavy-duty aluminum. All that busted. He's sending me a video, and I have the video. It's pretty funny. His hand is shaking. He's got a cigarette. He's holding his phone. And he's going over, walking around. And I'm FaceTiming him as we're doing this. And he's like, I can't believe you're asking me if the boat's okay and nobody got killed and stuff before you ask about the boat. But he goes, but let me show you how good the boat did. The lamination was fine.
Oh my God.
The rolled edge has scrapes in it, but the thing was like a potato chip and went. Cooler's gone, everything's gone. The anchor, I don't want to mention the brand. Everything broke, but the composite itself was fine. Structurally.
Damn, dude.
But we spent so much money because the first time we had the sides too high, then it was too low. Then we got it just right, but we had to build plugs and molds. We didn't, we kept thinking we got it right. Then we went through 3 or 4 prototypes. One of them, obviously, we lost. Then we built the orange one that we took to ICAST. That one went to the Holston, Watauga, the Broad. It went up to the Rocky Mountain area. It went everywhere from class 1 to light class 3. And then there was videos of it being used. But yeah, man, it went a lot of places, and we knew the lamination would work because remember when I sat in that started it, it was just chopped glass from these other manufacturers. And it's funny when you get on some of these brands, they talk about, real materials. I think the skiff industry is way ahead of most of the powerboat industry.
Oh yeah. It
is by far. And I think there's only a few handful of us that are actually really doing something cool. One manufacturer I compete with, he sells a lot of sizzle, but you got to give credit to the guy because he is creative. He does do new and innovative things. And then there's the trickle down effect. I think, me personally, I always feel like, the heavy hitter guides, the ones that have the bigger podcast, I'd rather do this because, number one, you're real, you're authentic, you're genuine, you care. It's not because you got a free boat or something.
Yeah.
But there's not many of us left. Right. Either going to be corporate and it's just a dude who's an engineer who's just doing what everybody else is doing. But there's very, very few leaders in any business. There's a bunch of always followers. And I continue to try to innovate. And if I get the ability to design what's in my head before I retire one day, I think it'll set the record straight because the design I have in my head is like insane.
Yeah.
And don't want to rock the boat too much, but you obviously have seen what we're capable of over the years.
Definitely.
The drift boat, the 21's pretty cool. A lot of people don't realize it that my wife's breast pump, when she was breastfeeding her daughter, we actually have a patent on it, but we molded a funnel into the gunnel. So when you open up the anchor locker of the 25 or the 18 EVO in the corners, instead of drilling a hole, putting PVC, a hose clamp, I molded in the actual Medela breast pump.
Holy cow.
It's never been done on a boat. Just like hatches open straight backwards. When we started the Gladesman, everybody was putting rod holders on the side of a skiff wall. I wanted them to hang so they wouldn't need sea deck or carpet. So suspend them. So we were the first to do that. Mark and I were the first, to measure a console and height and distance for customers and distance. He was, 6'3", and, I'm 5'7". So, God created everybody different. So we wanted to custom fit boats.
Yeah.
There's just so much design stuff that we did, like the oversized spray rails. People don't realize where the story came from or where that was developed. I get on, message boards and I hear everybody thinks a certain individual created that. It's not, the rounded transom. That same individual didn't create the rounded transom. It was another guy who created it, and he took it and then ran around and pat himself on the back, and then everybody believes it if you say it enough. But, at the end of the day, I'm sorry I'm ranting.
Nah, don't worry
what's
about
the
it,
next
dude.
question you got for me, dude?
So my last question is always, so I have a running playlist on Spotify.
Ooh,
and
okay.
I ask, so your 5 songs that you want to contribute to the playlist.
Okay. All right, but before I tell you, what do you think I would say? If you could judge a book by its cover.
I think you got a little yacht rock and some classic rock there. Maybe a little 80s, 90s hip-hop.
Okay. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, that's fine. Close. So one song we're gonna do A Boy Named Sue.
Great
Johnny
song.
Cash. So next song, Walk on Water by 30 Seconds to Mars.
Walk on Water?
By 30 Seconds to Mars.
30 Seconds to Mars. Oh, shit.
Fucked
up the Walk on Water. I've heard that song, I feel like. 30 Seconds to Mars. There it is. All right.
Okay. We're going to do Stevie B, Diamond Girl.
Stevie B. Diamond Girl. Oh, there it is. Guys.
That's 4 or 3?
I think that is 4.
Last one, because you said 5.
Yep.
We're going to go with, I would say Less Than Jake, but I'm going to go even deeper. I'm going to go with Rehashers, the band, which is a spinoff of the guys from Less Than Jake, Roger, the bass player. And we're going to go with the 1%, because that's how I feel.
Let's see.
I would be in the skiff world.
Dude, that, the 1%. Got it. Heck yeah, man.
You got it?
I got it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I usually give 5 too, but I've been running around all day and forgot to do it. But I'm gonna give you 5 songs anyway. Let's see.
All right. Well,
I'll go Tuesday's Gone. Not Led Zeppelin. Leonard Skinner.
Okay.
Won't Back Down. Tom Petty.
Ooh. That's another good song. I Am a Gator, and we do play that.
Oh, yeah.
No offense.
Dude, I love going to UF. We used to go to UF a lot when I lived outside the villages. Just go up there. Me and my buddy from Valdosta, Georgia would meet there. And we'd had a couple blurry nights out there at the Salty Dog Saloon.
Yeah. I actually met his mom, and she still lived in the same house right off the university across from the Oaks Mall.
That's what I've heard.
I was in her house. Because when I was trying to go to school there before I became a rep, I was working for a pest control company. And I remember I was like, man, this bug thing's not for me. But I remember seeing these gold records down the hallway. And her last name was Petty. And I said, hey, is that your son? And she's like, yeah.
No way. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah. All right. And then that was your five.
My
Uh,
fourth was Fly Like an Eagle, Steve Miller Band.
oh yeah, I like that one.
And then Soul Shine by the Allman Brothers Band.
So a lot of people don't know this. I don't think I've ever said this, but I before I started the boat company, I wanted to do amps.
Yeah,
I was going to do either boats because I like micro skiffs and stuff, and I like music. I'm a bass player, and my Ampeg and my Fender amps, for gigging. Graham, our media guy, when we lived together, we were roommates. We would jam out, and I remember I wanted to build composite amps because I wanted something that was lighter than the MDF that they were using for all that. So I'm a music guy. I love instruments. My kids, they love sports, but they all have to play an instrument.
yeah.
And even my 6-year-old. So good selection of songs you picked. So yeah, man, I dig all that. So
I
thank you.
listen to so much music. Like I'm a big Widespread Panic, like jam band kind of guy too.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh
And
yeah, oh yeah. I'm a bluegrass guy too,
dude,
man. I'm a John. I just don't like really country unless it's old
he's
country.
same
I'm a
here.
Johnny Cash. Old school country, not this pop
I hate pop
country
country,
today.
dude.
Yeah, no stuff jeans and stuff. That's not me,
I'm a
dude.
big like Doc Watson. I listen to a lot of Doc Watson
Mhm.
stuff because he's from up around,
Okay.
being from
Yep.
Marion.
Oh yeah.
But Billy
Oh yeah.
Strings, all that, dude. I love that
Well,
kind of.
Billy's the new widespread,
Dude,
dude.
he
Everybody's
is
jumped on.
he's like the new
Yeah.
Widespread. Widespread's still
Yeah.
around, but Billy's like
Yeah.
the new Grateful Dead. Widespread everything.
Oh yeah. No,
It's
he's got
cool
a
as hell.
following.
But
Yeah, my kids love his music too because he's a storyteller like Johnny Cash.
exactly, and it's cool as
Yeah, and I
hell.
love that. I love
I've
storytellers.
seen him in concert twice, and it was
Oh wow.
unbelievable.
Okay.
Both
All right.
times I saw him. The first time I actually saw him was in the Outer Banks. I've seen him three
Mhm.
times technically, but
Okay.
at a bluegrass festival, like way before he blew up.
Well, let's do another one of these later down the road, brother. I appreciate it, man. I want to tell your viewers thank you. I think I've only done one podcast in 23 years, and it was many, many years ago, and it wasn't a video one like this. But at the end of the day, it's cool. If anybody sees anything from this, I just want them to know, number one, I care about the brand. I don't care what you ride in as long as it's an East Cape. And know that everybody here, not me, but everybody here loves what they do. They care, and that's it. That's us in a nutshell.
Heck yeah,
So
man, dude. Well, thank you so much for coming on. That was our episode with Mr. Kevin Fenn of Escape Skiffs. Really cool episode. If you liked this episode, always give it a review. Apple, Spotify, give the YouTube a subscribe, and you know, greatly appreciate it if you do, and I greatly appreciate you if you don't. But like I said before we wrap up, come check us out at the Cash and Drafts event in Charleston, South Carolina on February 14th from 12 to 5. We will be there, and we'll have some stickers, flies, koozies. Still working on some merch. So we won't have that. But come and check us out. Gonna be a good time. Gonna be some cold beer. Um, Good conversation. Good people. Some good music. We got Bandito playing, Mr. Paul Puckett, who's been on the show. It's going to be an all around good time, so come and see us. Looking forward to it. And until Friday, I will catch you guys later.